Well, happy Halloween, folks. This is Poppa Redwood, and I'd like to thank you all for tuning in tonight on this night of mischief. Not mischief night, that's something else entirely. Now, I thought that it would be better to get a day early on this little tale, something for you folk to enjoy. The ones resting up at home, taking the night a little easier than the rest of us. Maybe you've got work tomorrow. Maybe you decided you don't want to go out. No matter what the reason, thank you for tuning into this. Tonight I have a special story for you. And I know I say that quite a bit, but this one's special because I wrote it myself a few years ago. Now I hope you all enjoy. And if you don't, I guess that trick is on me. Sit back, enjoy, and listen to By the Pumpkin's Light by Poppa Redwood. In a bog by a swamp, near a lake by a cave in a mountain, somewhere south by southeast of wherever you are right now, was a pumpkin. Now, this pumpkin wasn't the kind you could pick from a patch and take home with you. No, sir. This was much too big for that. Altogether, the pumpkin was about the size of a small cabin. The inside had been hollowed out, and on the outside were carved 2 windows and a door. Yes, it was a nice pumpkin house with a single, lonely soul living inside. A woman lived in this pumpkin, as she had done for a long time. So long that the North Star was only just the North Spark when she had moved in. If you asked her for her name, she couldn't tell you. She doesn't remember. If you asked her for her age, she would only tell you that she was older than you, which she probably was. Now, don't expect an old woman if you go looking for her in the pumpkin. She still doesn't look a day over 20. But how, you ask? Well, there's a very simple reason. The pumpkin. When the pumpkin was still just a gourdling, the woman met with an old witch and made a deal. In exchange for some work in the garden, the witch gave the woman a pumpkin and said, "One day this pumpkin will grow taller than both you and me, and then you can live inside it. When this happens, light a candle every night inside. If you do, both you and the pumpkin will stay young for as long as you continue to do this. But if you miss even a single night, age will come for you and take you away." "I will do as you say, old witch," the woman replied, "and I will keep old age away from me." And so she did. Day after day and year after year fell away until time lost meaning for her. This is how the woman stayed so young for so long. That is, until Gator came to the bog. Now, Gator wasn't a very complex creature. He knew what he wanted, and generally he got it. He wanted to catch fish to eat, and he wanted his bird servants to clean his scales. Most importantly, he wanted to sleep when it got dark. There was only one problem. Things didn't get dark in the bog. Gator noticed that once the sun went down, the bog stayed bright as day because of the woman and her pumpkin. At first, this wasn't so big a deal. Certainly, the light was a nuisance, but he thought that it wouldn't last for too long. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days went by, and Gator hadn't been able to find his shut-eye yet, and he was starting to get angry. If he couldn't rest, he couldn't focus. If he couldn't focus, he couldn't catch his fish. Now, something had to be done about that candlelight. Now, Gator, for as long as he'd been around, walking around the waters of any old bog out there, he had his bird servants follow him around, and they would do his bidding. With a flick of the tail, they were out, scouring the forest, searching for whatever it is he might find, whether that be a little morsel of a mouse, or just a fun little scroll to keep himself entertained. But the idea came to Gator that he was to send his bird servants to flick that light out with their feathers. When night came the following day, and the light was lit, Gator flicked his tail, and off went 3 of his servants to extinguish that candlelight. The first had accidentally flown a little too far into the abode and had scorched his tail feathers in the candle's flame, and he went scurrying out the front door. The second stopped a little too short and wound up by the dining table. All along the floor were crumbs that he decided to gorge himself with. Bit by bit and crumb by crumb, he had his fill, and eventually he decided that's all he needed, to the point where he decided to follow suit of the first and scurried on out that front door. Now the third bird flew to the wrong side of the room, where the woman was busy knitting herself something warm for the winter, and he flew straight into the woman's yard, getting itself tangled up and ruining that woman's old scarf. Now this made her angry, but as just so happened, it was dinner time. Now later on that night, Gator would smell something wafting out from the window of the pumpkin. Something that smelled an awful lot like fowl floating from the window. Now this did it for Gator, and he knew he had to do something more than just extinguish the light. Now when the darkness came again, so did the candle's light to soon chase it away. Gator slowly swam through the murky waters of the bog, closer and closer to the woman's abode. And he stopped at the water's edge and, using his tail, picked up a stick from the shore. Well, with this stick, he started a tap on the scales of his back. Just before the woman was about to tuck herself in for the night, she heard a strange noise coming out from in the bog. At first she thought it might be a skeleton playing on its rib cage, but then she remembered that it wouldn't be a few weeks until the skeletons came out to play their song. She stuck her head out of that carved window and saw there, in the light cast by the pumpkin, was Gator playing a tune along his ridges. "Gator," she called out to him, "why do you play so late at night? What reason do you have to celebrate?" "I do not play because I am happy," Gator said in a smooth, melancholy voice. "I play because I am distressed. My feet have gotten stuck in the mud of the bog, and I'm afraid I must play here until I starve." Now the woman thought on this, and she knew she couldn't sleep until Gator stopped playing, and she didn't have the patience to wait for him to starve. So she said, "If I were to help you from the mud, would you stop playing so I can rest?" "Oh, yes." Gator struck a few happy notes along his back, all the while concealing a toothy grin beneath the muddy water. "I would be more than grateful to you, kind woman." The woman nodded before coming out of the pumpkin. She hacked up the hem of her dress and made her way through the mud of the bog towards the stuck Gator. And Gator watched and waited from the muddy water's tail swaying just beneath that murky surface. And just when the woman reached down to take a hold of the creature, he snapped his jaws upwards and took off both her hands. At first the woman was stunned, staring at the stumps where her hands once sat. But now she was furious. She knew that without her hands she wouldn't be able to light the pumpkin at night. "Curse you, Gator!" she cried angrily. "Curse you and curse your kin. May the pumpkin's light never leave you." Gator was very nonchalant about the matter. "Curse me if you will, but now I will be able to get my rest." He turned away from the woman and left her to her stumps, swimming back to the deeper parts of the bog, satisfied that the next night would be dark once again. And when the next night came, no light struck up from that pumpkin. But yet, Gator could find no sleep. While the bog was black to all the other animals, Gator could only see light, He closed his eyes, he buried his head in the mud, and yet nothing could take the brilliance from his eyes. The woman's pumpkin might no longer shine, but now Gator's eyes are cursed to shine forever. To this day, if you went out to the bog at night, you can still see the eyes of Gator's family burning bright with the woman's curse. As for what happened to the woman, well, old age did remember her, and when it arrived, it took her away to the land beyond the land of Nod. She was given new hands there, and was allowed to keep her youthful looks, even though her pumpkin had rot. She is allowed to come back once a year when thousands of pumpkins are lit again. On All Hallows Eve, she comes back to try and keep those lanterns lit. If your pumpkin burns past midnight, that means the woman paid you a visit. You'll know her if you see her, because the hands at the end of her wrists are only bone. Wave to her and say Happy Halloween. For once the last pumpkin light goes out, she will return to the land beyond the land of Nod. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. This has been Poppa Redwood. Happy Halloween to all of you. Stay safe out there, or stay safe in there. Don't forget to check if the woman paid you a visit. And enjoy some R&R.